This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Welcome back to What Spoilers Tangents. The Gathering Tangent? The Gathering Tangent?
I think the Gathering Tangent, right? Yeah. I think
the Gathering Tangent.
The Tangent Storm doesn't... The Tangent Storm would work now, but the Gathering Tangent.
Yeah, the Gathering Tangent is definitely the way it goes. So, yeah, welcome to the Gathering Tangent. We're here to talk about mostly WoTCon, I think, but also maybe we'll quickly review everything that's happened since November, because that's when we started the book.
Sure.
But yeah, that's kind of what we're here today. We don't have guests or anything. It's going to be pretty short and sweet.
It's been a long time since I've been on a Tangents episode. You keep having them without me.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what we do on these anymore. You're going to have to lead me through. I'm completely
Okay, so our
in the
special
dark.
guest today is Seth. The voice you never hear on a Tangent Supercut.
I don't know how to do this, yeah.
So yeah, Tangents, we just talk about whatever. And I usually do structure it by the timeline of the book.
Okay.
Just because that provides some kind of beginning, middle, end. So we started the book in November. We were looking at our schedule before we started the recording. We started this back in November, and you were saying that you were reminding me that we actually didn't finish the preceding book before you got married.
Right.
So you came back from your wedding vacation or wedding break. You
Yeah.
actually did your honeymoon later. And then we finished that book, and then we got to Gathering Storm all the way in November.
Yes. So, I mean, I had what I would consider one of the busiest 9 months of my life since the marriage.
Right. Which is the time since for the book.
Yeah, so the time in the book. So, I mean, just in my personal life, Timber died shortly after the wedding, which was a huge shock.
Right.
And so that was like right about the time I think we started this book series, this book. I'm not entirely sure about the timing there, which was hard for a while. It still is hard. And then Travis,
Bless him.
Yeah, bless him. But he basically had a neighbor who had an out of control puppy who they weren't dealing with, and that puppy became ours. We hadn't even put away Timber's food bowls. I mean, it was
Wild.
Yeah. So, and that is Harvey. Having a new puppy he was 8 months old when we got him. We did track down his original birth records, and so and his original owners, who we have permission to keep him from, because they only had him for about a week before he was stolen or lost. So yeah, he's been a big focus of my life for the last, we will have had him for 6 months as of tomorrow.
Wow.
So, and 6 months, they always say, is that time when it's the most chaotic, when the dog, and we've really found over the last few weeks, he settled in really, really well. But those first 6 months were hard. I mean, he was the kind of dog who would bite our ankles and wrists to get our attention. He would just walk up in your face and bark, and he has a very loud, very startling, very triggering bark when it's in your face. He was shitting inside. He was not potty trained at all. For an 8-old month puppy, that's tragic, right? Like, at that point, they should be all those things should be well done. But he has been incredibly smart, incredibly trainable, still a giant bundle of energy, and because he's 65 pounds, he does occasionally smack or into us and hurt us occasionally, because he can't control the energy sometimes. But the intentional biting, the intentional hurting is stopped now that he's much more assured, he's much more settled in. He and the cat are friends, right? Like, they're sniffing each other and cuddling on the bed together, and he still was driving. He came in here, he wanted to play ball while I was getting set up, and totally got caught on one of the cords and freaked out because he was caught, and all the computer stuff went sliding onto the ground, and I was like, Harvey! So he's that level of just chaotic puppy, but he's a good dog, and he hasn't had an accident inside in a long time, and he's well crate trained. Still working on strangers. He's still not great with strangers, but just a little more time, and I think he's going to be a great dog.
Right. So it's really been the Gathering Harvey.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of your time.
A lot of my personal
book.
time has been spent on dog walking, dog training, just playing with him.
And like every episode has had a dog update of some sort. Like, really, like, if you listen to this book specifically, you're getting a lot of, like, you can follow the progression of the dog over this last book.
From crying to, oh, what a good puppy.
Yeah, really. This is that book. Wow. I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, this book encapsulates that horrible transition with Timber into the wild circus that is Harvey.
Yeah. In that time, I think we went on our honeymoon in January. Yeah, that was January.
Yeah. You did that in the winter. You very wisely ran away south for a little sunshine in the middle of Pacific Northwest winter for your honeymoon.
And that was an amazing honeymoon. Had an amazing time. I went not snorkeling. I went scuba diving. I have a history of swimming, so I love scuba diving whenever I can do it. It's being able to breathe underwater feels very magical to me. We went horseback riding because never wanted to do it, and then just were lazy a bunch in the
lazy in an exotic location is totally a fantastic vibe.
Never made a bunch of friends. Like we had a great time on the beach, and she speaks pretty fluent. I wouldn't say fluent Spanish, but close to fluent Spanish.
Close enough.
For that, and her Spanish gets better when she's been drinking, so that helps. So we had a great time doing that. Yeah, other than that, just, work is work. I've had also, here's the crazy thing. I've had a bunch of friends. So my life, I started off in Philadelphia, was my first job. And I was a more than innocent little, 22-year-old, 23-year-old coming out of college, and had a group of friends who really took care of me. And it turns out they all had kids about that time because they were mature and I was not. And that's been 18 years. And so it turns out all their kids are going to college, and their kids are all going to college around Portland. And so I've got this two group of friends from Philadelphia from 20 years ago, and they're both moving to the Portland area.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of old friends coming into Portland, as well as like some podcast friends that have moved to Portland. I'm looking at you, Neil and Amanda.
Oh, they went to Portland.
The area. They're not in Portland.
Oh,
But
right, yeah.
Sorry, Oregon. I should say Oregon, but the Portland area.
Okay, there
close
you go.
enough.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm not going to say exactly where they are because it's privacy, but
It's just like Portland. That's okay.
For me,
Yes.
Portland is the center of Oregon because it's the city that exists that sort of anchors the rest of the country.
It's the center of gravity, but people do live elsewhere.
Yeah. People make mistakes. I get that.
I can't hear you from my Disney princess existence in the woods.
Yeah, I'm just giving you shit. But, I've hit this point in my life where I'm like, everybody's kind of coming, a lot of people in my life are coming back into my sphere of influence, which is a whole another kind of trippy, I guess if you're old enough, everything comes back around, right?
Apparently. It sure seems like. That's really cool, having people from your past come back in like a positive way. That's really neat. And like your friendships are picking up.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. I mean,
without being weird, because 20 years difference, yes, but also like people don't change that much, really. You just get better at being yourself. I mean, if you're doing it right, anyway.
Although it is, all these old friends, I mean, we used to drink together, right? That's what we did. And now I'm not really drinking, and they're older and also not really like into that scene. So it's like, oh, right. We don't really want to pick up where we left off.
I literally watched a Ryan George sketch about this last night that came out like 2 days ago. Like, literally.
Was it just like people getting together and be like, what do we do now that we don't drink together? Yeah.
And like, oh, this food hurts my stomach, and I have a hard stop at 9 p.m. and my back hurts. And like, just like, what did we do together? Like, surely we're not all friends just because we were sat together in class accidentally. Like, I mean, it was referring back to high school friends, but still, I mean, it's the same. What if we can't drink and we can't eat spicy food and we can't go jumping off of cliffs and like now what then what is left?
Do we just have to talk to each other? What the fuck? Like
yeah, like we have stuff in common, right?
Yeah, right. As my friends with kids going to college and having their own kids are like, oh, and I'm like, I'm thinking about having a baby.
Right, yeah.
But actually, I'm really happy. One of my friends, like I said, her kids are going off to college, and she's absolutely and she moved. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to be close to you. I'm moving to St. John's area, and I'm like, yeah, that's 10 minutes. You're less than 10 minutes away from where I am. You're literally down the street. So I'm like, You're going to help me. If I have babies, you're going to help. Like, you're going to be, you're going to be my number one call.
We all go at our own pace.
We sure do. Yeah, so I mean, that's my life for this book is kind of new dog. Oh, I bought a house. I suppose I should mention that too.
You bought the house right before you got married, but you didn't get to move in until after the wedding, right?
No.
There was something with that, right? I clearly know how time works. obviously.
No, we got married, and a month later, Timber died. And then about 2 weeks after that, we got a nasty letter from our HOA telling us that Timber had been too big.
Right. It was the honeymoon that was bracketed around the move.
Yeah, it was the honeymoon. That's what it was. Yep. The honeymoon. We bought the house. We went on the honeymoon, and we literally moved. Oh my God, yeah. So we got back from the honeymoon.
That happened during this book.
Yeah. God, we got back from the honeymoon. We both got so sick. We were both deadly ill. Our cat also got deadly ill and nearly died, and had to be taken to the hospital and was on thousands of dollars of medication. And that was the week that we got Harvey. And that's the week we were packing to move into our new apartment. So we were sick. Our cat was sick. We got a new puppy, and we were packing to move into our new house. So that was a hard 2 weeks.
Yeah, you were kind of dead for those 2 weeks. I was definitely getting extremely like grunt level texts from you at that time. Like 2 or 3 words every like week to just be like,
I am alive.
Yes or no on the podcast. I technically am not dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a rough time, and in the depths of winter, no less.
Yeah,
where there's like no daylight. Like, yeah, that was you had a rough time there. But yeah, then you got in the house and have had shenanigans in the house. All kinds of fun times.
Yeah, house has been fun.
Been told on the podcast or otherwise, and so yeah, that's been quite the progression.
Yeah, and for the most part, the house it was move-in ready. We haven't had any problems with it. It's been a really easy process to be in the house. The only, we're still not. Today, I realized how we were in stage 3 of moving in. Right, stage 1 is like get enough shit in there that you can survive in the house. Right.
You got the bedroom and half the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're done.
Stage 2 is like unpack everything and like spend some time settling in, living in the house. And stage 3 is going into those final boxes that you stashed away and being like, do we actually need this, or do we need to get rid of it? Or like, we need to unpack the last few things that we really didn't immediately have a need for. But like today, I opened up a bag of bags and everyone's like, oh, here's all my purses. Oh, and this purse has a bunch of stuff in it I've been looking for the last, 6 months. So we're still in that stage of like finishing up the unpacking.
I'm very much still in that place too, because I feel like I never ever finished moving into any given apartment in college. Like that stage never got reached because it's college life, and I'm also holding on to stuff that's like not relevant until I'm done with college. So like I still never quite finished because it's not fully sunk into my brain that I'm in the house now. Right? Like I'm getting there.
I was like, how long? You've lived there for years. many years.
Yeah. We're coming up on 5 years. And it's just the habit of not really finishing unpacking is apparently hard to break, because I keep being like, fuck, that box is still there. And I know what's in it. And it's really just like memento, keepsake, dust catcher type stuff. But like, it should be out. I was saving it so that way when I had more space than a shoebox of an apartment, I could have it out. Like, finish the intended thing.
Well, and you caught me earlier calling this house an apartment, right? I still think of it as an apartment I'm renting, and I can't break that. And partially as it is a row house, so it does still feel very apartment-like in some ways, right? I'm sharing walls. I don't have a lot of yard space in the front or back. It's a relatively low square footage home compared to like a standalone home. Although there are certainly smaller standalone single floor homes out there. But yeah, for me, I'm definitely the kind of person who I need to be completely unpacked at some point. Like it's weighing on my mind that there are boxes that have never been unpacked sitting somewhere. I need to go through those and sort through them.
I just live with that sort of guilt dragging at me all the time, constantly. So like a few more or less doesn't really make a difference in like the cognitive load of all the things that I have to do that I just feel shame about not having done. Like there's just a cup overflowing sort of energy. So
speaking of which, you have to get on me and I have to get on me about getting the tax stuff handled.
Oh,
for the okay. Because audience, I fucked up the business taxes. Not majorly. I just didn't include one of the forms that they want, and I sent it in with my personal taxes instead of in with the business taxes, and that has gotten us in trouble and fined us. So I have to get that resolved, which involves calling the IRS, which is why I've been putting it off, because that sucks. And I got the letter like 2 days before WoTCon. So then it was WoTCon, going to WoTCon, coming back from WoTCon, being sick, having to work for a week, and now it's now.
So what was I doing for all of that time? I've really just been chilling, living my executively dysfunctional life. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's your? So, I mean, I know in the last book you've been pretty stable. I think update on your husband's foot, I think, is probably the only thing I can think of that's a big major life change.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, I do actually have a few other things, but that is relevant. I don't generally update the podcast audience on that, but yeah, in the course of the last year, he's gone from having like to be very careful with the ankle situation to being pretty much back to like hiking and
Awesome.
running around and like, you know, he still has to be a little careful. There's still definitely a couple of things that hurt and like stuff, but he can do the things that he used to be able to do before. Right? He has to be slightly more careful about it, but like not in a activity restricting way. Just in a, nope, not going to walk on the balance beam log across the creek, going to find a stable ford for sure. Kind of situation. But yeah, he can live his life again. It's great. It's been a really long 3 years, literally 3 years since the actual injury happened. And he's finally back to living like 90% of what life was like before, just with bone spurs now, because that's apparently a thing that happens when you have to repair yourself.
Are those good for riding a horse? You can just, basically, giddy up hit him with the bone spur.
No.
Oh, okay.
I can't even feel them when I massage his heel, but yeah, it's apparently quite painful, but he still has been able to like do stuff this summer that like he was not able to do. So that's been really, really great. Modern medicine is awesome. For sure. If you need sports medicine, you should totally go to Slocum in Eugene. They have some of the best sports medicine type surgeons and doctors there. And he effectively had a football injury, even though he did not get it playing football. It was, the kind of thing you usually see in football players. So that's one big update. But yeah, my house is very stable. My land is putting out a lot of fruit this year. We put cages up around the blueberries this year, and I have gotten, probably close to 10 pounds of fruit. They just absolutely obnoxious amount of blueberries. I brought some to WoTCon, and they really kept me going. But other updates in my life is I can't quite remember when I started used to sew. It was, I think, before this book started, but that has been a thing that has been growing and progressing and evolving over the course of this book, is having a regular podcast rhythm akin to this, but with my mom, where she's really the driving force behind it. She's the main info dumper. Like, I mostly provide color commentary with occasional info dumps. Mostly it's her.
You're like co-hosting, which is like supporting the main host by, making sure that they're communicating clearly and like have someone to bounce ideas off of, but it's her ideas and her communication.
Right, exactly. And I do this like intro outro thing, and my stepdad masters it, and sometimes I put sound effects in. I really should have done the hashtag #SoWhat challenge, but I just did not have the brain power to add yet another level of that intersection. But that's been a really fun process working with her to create that. She really likes listening to it. She's like one of the rare podcast clients who actually listens to their own product. And it is lovely to have a client who gives you feedback on your editing because they actually listen to the thing. So that's just been really cool.
Are you saying something about me?
I'm saying something about every other one of my clients, with the exception of Queers of Time. Camille, I love them. They are very analytical and did have many constructive criticism things to say on our first few rounds. Now we're good, and I never get that feedback because I internalize the feedback, and now we're good. But yeah, only Camille and my mom ever actually listen to the finished product.
I did when you first started editing for a while, but
oh yeah, you did.
At some point, it's like, yeah, I don't need it. I'm not gonna have any better input on this than you are. You're being more careful with it than I ever was. So
yeah, but no, my mom actually really enjoys like hearing the finished product, and she says she listens to them twice. Anyway, it's been a very fun process because it's a very different podcast from this, but also I've learned a lot of lessons from this and like using that, and also from Hot Nuance, which is a podcast that no longer is being made because schedules are hard, but like nonetheless, I learned a lot from doing that one that I've applied there. I like literally use the same time travel sound effect from one. So like, it's like, no, I already have a time travel sound effect. It's cool. And so then from there, I also this year have started a podcast with my autism coaching business, or not my business, but my autism coaching career with my fellow coaches. We have started a podcast called Autistic Stuff for Autistic People. And it's literally me and my coaching mentor, as well as 2 of my coaching colleagues, so 4 of us collectively, talking about stuff to do with being autistic in the world, kind of, autistic info dumps and autistic joy and just general lived experience as people. And we've got 3 episodes out now. We're only releasing once every other week, so that way we can kind of record in boom and bust cycles of alignment of schedules and everything. Because, 4 autistic people in 3 time zones, one of which is in Europe, it's hard for sure. So we're able to record a lot and then release kind of infrequently. But it's been a really cool process, again, learning from my other podcasts. How do I want to put this together? How do I want my templates to work? And how freaking janky every one of my new projects is when I start. I'm like, yeah, I know how to make a podcast. And then every one of my new projects, the first 2 or 3 episodes just suck. And then I figure out what I want as a producer, as an editor, and then I lock in. And it starts being good, and I start having a rhythm, and I have a script, and I know what I want. But the first few episodes, it's just like, oh my God, this is so bad. I thought I was a professional. I thought I knew what I was doing. But for some reason, the process of starting a new project means that you do get reset to novice status, however briefly. Like, it's really weird.
I think it's more about being a pro is how fast you can make that curve bend back into the professional level. Less about, because of course you're going to start, you've figured that out. You're going to start over anew with every project. You have to build your workflows, you figure out people's microphones, figure out, what that person is doing wrong that's causing that echo, right? Like, there's always a level of troubleshooting in the beginning, and then once you dial things in, you can be much more professional. But yeah, I mean, it's how quickly you can dial things in for me. I think that's what makes you good.
And podcasting is also a collaborative process, so you have to train the other person to do it. And my mom has been very easy to train because she is a professional musician. She's done studio work. So the transition to podcasting, again, she was very professional about it. It didn't take her long to go from absolute novice to like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Like, has been using Audacity for as long as I've been alive almost,
Don't have to train her on microphone discipline. And yeah.
I mean, slightly, because it is a different mic to do spoken versus singing. Right, performance mics are different, but also she has those 2 bins already in her head. She's just more used to one. Whereas my autistic podcast, none of them are podcasters or performers of any sort. So I have had to train them on where do you find the menu options in Audacity in order to, and like walk them through every single step of how to export and where to upload. And like by episode 6, they're starting to anticipate what I'm going to say next. And, it's a much slower learning process. And the questions they have are like not questions I expected, because I'm just like, wow, you really are utterly ignorant of this entire world. And everyone I've worked with has had a degree of exposure that you do not have. And they're learning. It's fine. We've recorded like 9 episodes, I think, at this point. We've got 3 out. So I've got plenty in the queue and ready to go. But it's been an interesting learning experience coaching people through that. And then also they want to help me with publishing and stuff. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, suddenly I'm a control freak. And I don't know if I know I need time, and I know I need energy, and I know I need to like delegate, but that would mean letting you have some control over this process. And suddenly that makes me feel like I have hives. So whole lot of cool learning experiences to go through, and that's really been a lot of what has dominated my year this year. Like, yes, a lot of things are stable, but that's really been my intellectual process, is these 2 curves.
And I think that is also one of the reasons why we stopped having so many guests on, right? Is because it is like starting over. It's like starting a podcast over every time you bring on a new guest. Like, there's always, it shouldn't be that hard, but like, depending on how experienced the person is, what their microphone, it's gotten easier since COVID. But I do think you and I both hit this point where it's like we are putting in as much work in setting up guests, getting them set up, integrating them into the podcast as we are on the whole rest of the podcast put together.
Yeah. I mean, also schedules are hard.
And schedules are hard, right? Like, yeah, because we were like, we need to schedule. We want to put this podcast out on a regular basis. We're going to record when it's convenient for us, and if you can join us, fine. But like, it was easier, I think, when we were both not working and we could move the schedule around to accommodate guests.
Yeah, now we're locked in. Like, you have a externally imposed schedule. I have an internally imposed one. But, like, I have a lot of calls throughout the week. I can't be just bouncing around. Like, I have so many scheduled events with different people for different reasons.
Right. Which is good because, like, you didn't used to have that. And now I'm really happy with the different podcasts and the volunteer stuff. And, like, yeah, you're busy, right? And
yes. I need to learn to delegate. I need to get minions.
And I'm just, I'm working a full-time job, which I know for some of you, you're like, well, then what's the problem? It's just a full-time job. But turns out it doesn't leave me a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's very real. But the other really exciting thing that happened is the thing that just happened as we finished the book.
Sure.
And that's WoTCon.
WoTCon, yeah. So this is sort of the main topic. We wanted to catch up on what you're doing, talk about WoTCon, and then we'll talk about the Gathering Storm a little bit. Yeah, WoTCon was a great, fun week. I kind of went for the first time in a long time to a con as just a guest. I wasn't doing any part of the planning. I wasn't on any panels. I brought some friends, and I hung out. Huge shout out to Nemtalk. Who's been on Discord quite a bit for our live shows, but he was there at con. I spent a good chunk of the con hanging out with him. I brought one of my coworkers, and the three of us spent a big chunk of the weekend together. So, I made tons of other friends, and I don't want to just single him out, but I am just going to single him out because, it was fun. We did a lot of stuff together, and he was very social.
Yeah, Nemtalk has the dubious honor of being the person who bought me the beer I didn't need for 2 nights of the con. Both times he was being so nice and so observant of my desire for another beer. And in both cases, I really shouldn't have had that beer. So he gets the dubious honor of having bought me the beers I didn't need twice at the con. And I'm sorry you get that honor, Nemtalk. But it was great hanging out with you.
Definitely. And then just the list of other people I got to hang out with is so long that I don't even want to go into it at this point.
I will say I did a lot better job of taking selfies with people than I have on previous cons, and I still didn't take even half the selfies I should have. I hung out with so many wonderful people and did not get selfies with them because I'm a ding-dong. And it was such a delight to talk with everyone. I love this community of nerds. You're all so smart and funny and come from such interesting different backgrounds with different skills and perspectives. And it's just such a delight to get to mingle with so many different people who have this one thing in common. And yeah, Light Blinded Fool did win the poker tournament. Athlon was there. We got to hang out with Athlon, which was hilarious because we've actually hung out at SpoilerCon. Right. This is like, yes, we've hung out with Morgan before, but this was someone who had traveled a great distance to come to SpoilerCon and then also traveled a great distance, well, a lesser distance, but still a great distance to WoTCon. And so that was a fun, like, full circle kind of moment, being like, I remember you last time in Portland so long ago.
And then I just want to give out my blanket disclaimer. If you said, something to me this weekend about how you listen to my podcast or you like what I do or, hey, you're Seth, and I responded with something like, thanks, and then stumbled away, I'm sorry. It's really, I really, really appreciate when people come up to me and tell me they like what I do or listen to the podcast. And I still have not figured out a good way to respond to it without blushing, stammering, and walking away. So thank you. I really do appreciate it. It makes my heart warm. I'll try better next time, but I don't. It's so hard. It's so, because I can see the numbers. I can see there are people listening to the podcast, but realizing those people exist in real life and might actually come up to me and say something is just, I don't think my brain has ever been able to reconcile those two things.
Yeah, you should have grown up as the child of a performing artist who puts out albums where your small child's voice is on one of the albums. Then you will know how to process that. Yeah.
That would be easier. Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, you have faces, as Pants is saying. Yeah, you guys have faces, and like you're real people, and I love you for that. But my God, I'm still not 100% gracious about it, and I really wish I was better about that.
Well, it's okay. I still have never had the nerve to actually hang out with Michael and Kate like a normal human being. So, we've all got our strengths and weaknesses.
I didn't spend a lot of time with them this weekend. I did get to say hi a few times, and I did listen to them for like an hour one night, but it was really late. Yeah, they were I was like, you know what? There's a bunch of people who want to spend time with them. I've gotten to do it in the past. I don't want to try and hog Michael and Kate this weekend.
Yeah, I told myself this was going to be the year I would be normal, and then I was not. So I just avoided them because terrifying. I love them so much. I mean, I was in pretty close proximity to Michael on the dance floor.
Yeah.
Which is always fun because he shreds the dance floor so hard, and it's just the most fantastic thing. And I had a great time at the dance party this year because I remembered earplugs.
Mm-hmm.
Always seeing Lee, the interpreter, always tears the dance floor to absolute ribbons. And then Michael just comes in, and it's I mean, the dance party is great. I love everyone there, but Lee and Michael are perhaps my favorites.
I did not go to the dance party. It was too loud for me. I did not bring headphones. So
earplugs really helped.
Yeah. I walked in and went, I would love to hang out longer, but I don't know if it's louder than it's been in past years, or if I'm just more sensitive than I used to be, but I had to walk away. I had to walk away from it.
I was wearing earplugs like all through dinner and for all of main stage programming. It was just kind of my MO when I was in that room.
But then what's great about WoTCon is you can walk out of the dance floor and there's a huge group of people playing board games right outside the dance floor. And it's like, if you're not comfortable with that, you can do this instead.
Yeah.
And and played cards. And yeah, like I said, I got to hang out with so many cool people. I don't even...
Big shout out to Talk Around Riyadh yet again for doing their What Idol inclusive sing-along party.
Yeah, you love that.
In the lobby. That is one of the best things in the entire world. And I love them so much for doing that and having What Idol parody lyrics in the repertoire. It's just so great. So always have to shout them out for doing that.
Also, really entertaining panels. Can't go without shouting out the panels, right? Like, they do such a good job of making interesting people talking about Wheel of Time content in front of people that I got to see a trial. I always enjoy a good trial, a mock trial. This time they were going after Rand for the...
No, it was Luce Theron, right?
Luce Theron, right.
For the attack on the Shale Ghoul at the end of the thing.
Yeah, at the end of the War of Power. And basically like doing that without, he was told not to by the women's side of things, and also using the show had the Tamerlane be the authority, be the woman in that situation. And so there was like arguing, oh, well, the TV show's not accurate. The book is more accurate. And it was fun. It was pretty good. Yeah. And just a bunch of other, great Wheel of Time content panels that I can watch. I want to go back and watch them all online. I haven't had a chance to do that.
Yeah, I got to remember to watch the streams or the recordings because those are all available on the website. Yeah, I'm the creative program or the creative track person, and it's really fun to see them getting put together. Like to see the other track directors talking about what they've got going on and seeing the panels that I'm quote unquote responsible for organizing themselves. And I always do my content creation panel, and that's always a great time. I've now had 2 people transition from being in the audience to on the panel in the course of my years doing it, which makes me feel very accomplished. I am encouraging people to make content and feel confident in what they're doing. And that just makes me feel really productive and happy. And then I also went and watched one of the panels. I watched the Resistance in Other Stories panel because we always have a Something in Other Stories panel. And this year it was Forms of Resistance, and I went to that and watched it. And that was a really cool, interesting discussion of all these different fictional universes. And it's one of the few things that's not Wheel of Time, but it's also, we're still all unified by Wheel of Time. And it's really fun to see how people engage with that material.
Oh, the other panel I really liked was the writing an Outrigger novel, where it's basically coming up with some speculation about what an Outrigger novel would look like. I, of course, am completely disagree with all the conclusions that they came to, because I have my own headcanon and would write it my own way. But it was really fun to see somebody else sort of write that novel and how they would put together and what they would want to talk about and that sort of thing. So it was structured a little differently than I thought it was going to be, but I really did enjoy the panel, because he had written a little sort of like a chapter, and he had sort of proposed a bunch of things in that chapter had happened, and then it was like, okay, being that these things have happened, how did we get there? And so there was almost a stake in the ground that we were trying to get to, rather than the infinite possibilities, which I get why you want to do that in a panel, right? Like,
yeah, time limits are real.
Time limits are very real. So really enjoyed that panel as well. That was really good. So, and then the food was amazing. The food's always really good.
I had my usual issues with food. I thought hot sauce was going to fix all of my problems, and it fixed about a third of my problems. So I ate better than I ever have, but still woefully insufficient to what I needed to do.
For me, it was not being on any panels and being there entirely 100% as a guest. I was so low stress. I just enjoyed myself. And so I was able to eat.
I think it's just the sheer noise floor of the whole thing, being indoors for days, and it's just all indoor bouncing flat panels of sound, and I don't know, it feels like noise overload to me, that just my body's like, no, we're in flight mode. Mm-hmm. Like, we cannot be digesting. What are you talking about? Ugh.
And it starts with the airplane, right? Because the airplanes are loud as hell.
The noise canceling headphones make it so much better, but it is still a full body experience to be next to a jet engine for several hours. Yeah. It's my least favorite part about WoTCon is getting there.
Yeah.
The main stage programming was pretty amazing too.
Oh yeah, I mean we got to see the costumes from the show, which I mean,
the costume designer for seasons 2 and 3, and she brought 5 of the show costumes for display, and she was very excited to talk about them for hours. She was quite the hit at the con. She was really cool.
And I think all the things we've said about the show, I'd never think we always complimented the costuming. We always thought that they did a very good job with the costuming.
I've never heard a complaint about the costuming, even from the people who just hate the show. Like, the costuming is never what I hear about before I manage to ignore them. The costuming is never their top 3 issues, No,
I've had them say, like, well, it's too clean. And I'm like, you mean...
I don't give a good goddamn.
Yeah, because this is not a medieval fantasy. This is not a medieval fantasy.
Let me have pretty fantasy. Let me have fantasy.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the women who can use the one power to clean their dresses have clean dresses all the time? What a shock.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's really unrealistic that they age. Okay.
Oh, wait, sure. People in the Two Rivers have a wool sweater? Like...
Wow.
Oh, no. But it looks modern.
Yeah, no, the
okay,
costumes have always been a thing that are top 3 on people who are complimenting the show. Costumes is like so easily a common thing that people are just in love with. Even season 1, but seasons 2 and 3, it's getting to see this woman talk about her process and her team and her enthusiasm was like, I get why the costumes are so amazing. This is a lot of passion.
Well, and the fact that she did the Sean Chan in season 1 as well, that was her first project, right?
Yeah,
so like there was that
real,
real, oh my God, the Sean Chan are rolling in and they are this completely different look.
Which like knockout part of season 1.
Yeah. And there were there were a few things where she was like, she thought that it was from the books, but she invented it. A couple times where she was like,
I loved that. Robert Jordan was smiling down upon that moment. That made him happy.
And just some of the coincidences, like the fact that they ended up using raven feathers for...
Yes. Serendipity magic for the Sean Chan.
The Sean Chan headdress. What was her name? Saroth? Yeah, Saroth.
Yeah, it was in the Saroth's outfit, and she didn't even know.
She didn't even know. She
what
just
do you mean you didn't know?
No. Like we all clocked those raven feathers right away, and it just happened to be. I mean, I'm sure the bin of raven feathers was there because raven feathers are something they use, right? But she's like, I just grabbed a bin of raven feathers who were sitting there, and they worked perfectly, and that's just serendipitous for the Sean Chan, which of course works. The Dark Friend Sean Chan, where the ravens are like double, a double entendre, right?
Yeah.
That's what a double entendre is.
Double meaning, anyway.
Yeah, double meaning.
But yeah,
so just stuff like that, which was really cool to see. Seeing the back of Elida's dress, where they had carefully placed 6 stones, no blue, right, deep within the intricacies of her dress, where no one would ever see it. There wasn't even a shot of the back of the dress in the show, right? Like, yeah. Sharon Gillian is the name of the person who ran that, if we didn't say that already. She has a great Instagram. She was super nice. Obviously, cared deeply about creating something that really reflected the fact that Jordan pulled from a lot of different cultures to create his culture. And she took that and said, oh, okay, so I can use anything and create some really intricate, cool costumes. And she did, right?
Yeah. Yeah, she understood where he was coming from with the Legends Fade to Myth at an aesthetic level. Like, she got that, even though she didn't know all of the plot stuff. Like, that doesn't matter. You understood the first paragraph, and that's all that matters.
And I never expected everybody who worked on the show to read the books.
For sure.
I kind of expected the writers to read the fucking books, but they didn't do that either. But it's, anyway.
This was a costuming discussion.
We're not going to go into the writing.
And she was really engaged with talking to people about it, too.
Yeah.
Like, she wanted to have the back and forth and was just so willing to talk to people, and it was so cool.
I mean, was so willing to talk to people and was so engaging that I brought Chris to the con, my coworker, who's like a diehard, doesn't want to watch the show type person. And at the end of the con, he's like, oh, those costumes are so good. Maybe I'll watch the show just to see the costumes.
Just turn the sound off and just watch.
Right, yeah, that level of like, that presentation was good enough that it got someone who was a diehard, never watched the show fan to consider watching the show just on the basis of the costuming, right? Like, so I think that's an accomplishment, and I think that's a
lot of passion.
Yeah, a lot of passion that she showed, and then I think that was the highlight, which I didn't expect it to be, right? That and of course Kate and Michael reading. Always love listening to them reading. Yeah, naturally. Mm-hmm. Kate's voice is changing for sure.
Yeah, her voice is definitely changing. And then, what else about the con?
I mean, it was nice to see you in person.
Yeah, always. We should see each other more often, given that I live in not Portland and you live in Portland.
Right.
We should probably try to see each other more often than in Ohio.
I don't understand how people maintain social relationships, because I'm doing my best here, and man, it's hard. It's really hard. And I'm not doing a good job. And not doing a good job is hard, much less doing a good job where people are like I see how much effort Never puts into her friendships, and I'm just like, oh my God, you're so good at that. And you do it so naturally. But I'm sure it's just practice and effort that I don't see.
Speaking of effort, I will say another fun thing from the con, the costumes that all the people made.
Yeah.
Right? The cosplay, the show tributes, the parade at the end, like a lot of because of the costume person coming this year, I think people really went hard on the costumes.
That plus I think the fact that you have the show as an example.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of diverse
many
characters.
Show Moraines.
Right.
So many Show Moraines. Love you all, but like, wow, there was a lot of you.
I feel like from books, you get a vague description, and we all kind of end up with similar language, but like, oh, are you trying to be this version of that character or that version of this character, right? There's a little bit of like ambiguity based on book description, right? But now that we have this show template model, we actually have, oh, you're trying to look like that character looked on screen. And I can see that, and I can see the details that match up. In the same way that I feel like, remember people used to do like Ariel Burgess's versions of the characters? Because they had a visual that they could base the costume on, and it was immediately recognizable by other people. I feel like in the same way that the costumes really, because they do have the show as a template and are immediately recognizable, you can then be like, how close are you to that character? Oh, that's a really good imitation of that. As opposed to, oh, what were you going for? You were going for this example of what you saw in your head, and I'm not sure how close to that you actually got.
Yeah, there was so much talent. We had a full-blown Queen Morgaze. We had so many Moraines. Brian came not only as Recappa, but also as Perrin with the hawk and the falcon and a hammer. And it was just like... there's so many costumes.
So great to talk to Brian again, after his traumatic head injury and sort of withdrawal from the community. You always worry that is that person going to come back?
Rick Kappa's actually been making a comeback on YouTube.
But Rick Kappa's back. Yeah, Rick Kappa's back. Brian's back. Like I'm so happy. So happy that I got to talk to Brian again. And he's back, which is great.
Yeah. It's super, super great. There was also a lot of energy for the Save Watt campaign. A lot of different mentions about it, and one of the Moraine bodice pieces even had Save Watt in the text. Lots of postcards being handed out. There was still a lot of energy going towards that throughout the con. Koala was there with her Cards of Time. She continues to just be an indomitable Cards of Time dealer.
Oh my God. Amazing. So I didn't make it last year because of the wedding. And I was telling her, oh yeah, I didn't get to get any of the Cards of Time last year. And she goes, shh, and snuck me a whole pack of last year's cards.
She's so sneaky. She's so sneaky.
So I have a full pack from last year.
I love her so much.
And pretty much full pack from this year. And yeah, no, she's hilarious. And like, she comes out all the way from Australia, and she's just the sweetest little old lady in all the ways that's a stereotype, right? Like, she's just the sweetest little old lady.
Yeah.
But also like very energetic
and a
very,
koala conservationist.
And a koala conservationist, and fantastic person. And I just, oh man, I there's so many people that I could say that about, that showed up, did a lot, worked really hard.
Yeah. It's really hard to start. You talk about one person, like, let me list every single person I can remember, knowing full well that you're going to forget people. Like, that's terrible. But
I did have fun. Delusions, when I first got to the con, I walk in, and Delusions, we got in at like late Thursday night, early Friday morning. It was like 1 a.m., right? Like, so they're in the lobby drinking. And she runs up and just, gives me a big hug and is like, oh, I didn't think you were going to make it, yada, yada. And about half an hour later, so we're talking to somebody, one of the new people at the con. And he goes, so how long have you two been married? To me and Delusions. And so
that's just how she is with people.
That's just how she is with people. It's like, she's so enthusiastic and happy to see you that you think she's greeting her husband, right? Like, that's how just over the top and wonderful she is.
Delusions of Grandall, everyone. She's fantastic.
And so for the rest of the weekend, she was like, my husband, and I was like, yay.
That's hilarious.
That was pretty funny. So just lots of fun little moments like that all weekend. Again, you can't list them all.
No, there was a door decorating contest that had some very epic entries that got shown at the end.
I was sitting at dinner with the people who did the murder all nailed to the door. I thought that one was pretty good.
Yeah, the door draw, amazing.
And then there was they did the Finn and the Twisted Red Terangrial.
It was 2 different Finn entries in the contest. Just so elaborate. Yeah, just so much talent. So much talent. Speaking of talent, apparently the deadline for What Idol has been extended.
Of course it has.
So
it's always extended.
I had basically given up on being able to do anything, so now I have reason to beat myself up slightly more, because potentially I could do something. But oh my God, I haven't started.
Did you like that the potential one I sent to you?
I mean, I hadn't heard of the songs and I haven't listened to it yet, I have one of the songs you sent like a year ago has made it onto one of my playlists, and now I feel like I know it well enough that I want to I need to go back and see
what my potential,
what your parody lyrics were, because now I know the song because I just put it on a playlist and have learned it.
So yeah, I don't know. People don't know this, but every 2 months or so, I'll send you a song and be like, what about this one? And send you like some of the lyrics in Wheel of Time form, but it's usually not very good. And I'll be like, what about this one?
And then I'm usually like, I'm uncultured and I've never heard this song before in my life. So it's been a struggle.
And I'm getting them from Never, who's, more on the pulse of pop culture. So she'll play a song for me and it'll get in my rotation and I'll be like, oh yeah, this is a song everybody knows. And then I'll propose it to you and you're like, not everybody knows this.
But at least one of them, I liked it so much that it has now become a song that I know.
Do you know which one?
It's the one about I Met a Woman with Lips of Red.
Oh, okay.
Paris Paloma?
Yeah, Paris Paloma, yeah.
Yeah, that song has definitely made it onto my regular rotation. So I got to go look at what your lyric ideas were for it, because I had a whole idea, and then I wrote the lyrics down and I was like, this doesn't work. The entire everything that I wanted that I thought was going to be cool, I can't make work. Plus the video and everything would be so. And I told Salia I was going to do this like really like unhinged video this year, and now I'm going to be lucky if I can pull off like a lyric video at all. Like, if I can make an entry, I'm going to be so proud of myself. There's not going to be an unhinged epic video. I'm sorry, Celia. I'm sorry.
All right. So anything else about WoTCon? I think we've hit the con crud was common.
Yeah, I think that's the last thing is the aftermath is in the WoTCon server. Basically, everyone who has bothered to check in has been either sick with something or definitively sick with COVID. And I am one of the very few people who has been checking in, and I haven't felt sick. I haven't tested positive. I haven't felt the slightest bit ill. Somehow everyone else has gotten sick. I know one person has had to get medical attention. It's been a whole crud plus COVID has really taken a lot of people down. Most of them are back up into work, but it's been getting passed around households, and it was a pretty serious spreader event that I somehow missed, I guess because I'm special or because I just rolled a nat 20 on my health check, as one does.
You get lucky. Yeah. No, I mean, you can spend, I think I ran a fever for a day or so, but I didn't let that slow me down because, American capitalism can't take a sick day because I already took a week off. So, and I'm actually taking a day off this next week because I have a wedding to go to. So yeah.
But yeah, that's basically it for WoTCon. Aside from, I feel like I should say formally, I am not planning on going next year or in future years because I have a standing event conflict with WoTCon, and I would rather do the one that's in my backyard than the one that involves going to Ohio. So I'm kind of formally withdrawing from it, not because the con is anything but awesome, but just because I literally cannot be in two places at once. So I'm not going to be the creative track director anymore, and all of that is going to have to get passed off to someone else, which is sad, but I don't want to go to Ohio when all my real life people are doing a thing that's an hour down the road. Right.
And I was just talking about how hard it was to maintain local friends. And I'm sort of at this point where, going to the con was nice because I could see you and Morgan and a few other local people there as well. But yeah, it's at this point, it's not, I haven't made plans not to go next year, but I haven't made plans to go. And it's going to take something pretty extraordinary to get me back out there again next year. Maybe I might switch to an every other year schedule, but man, it's just time off work and stuff like that has been really hard lately. And so, yeah, I as well and probably will not be there next year unless something changes.
Yeah, a lot of people who live on the West Coast, Oregon, Washington, California, were having serious drunken conversations on Sunday about doing a West Coast regional get-together without any serious events, just rent a house, buy a stack of pizza, hang out. So because I can't plan on going to WoTCon, I am probably going to keep rattling people's cages about that and try to get someone else to decide to do the rental and all of that, because really we just want CouchCon. We don't
even want to call it a con. A couch.
Yeah, no. The con cannot be in the name. It has to be a hangout.
Yeah.
It has to be a hangout. I refuse to put con in the name. I'm not taking ownership of it. It's not branded with WoTCon. But essentially, what we need is regionals. We need regional get-togethers. And it's very possible. So definitely, if you are a West Coast person, there are channels and ways to be in contact with West Coast people, and maybe someday there will be a thing where you can come to a house on the coast and eat pizza and hang out with a bunch of people who may or may not have gone to WoTCon.
But I think we both hit a point where traveling across the country is difficult and hard and a burden, both in terms of taking time away from our lives and the travel time and the money.
Yeah, it's hard, and Brandon and I definitely would rather go to an event together than go and have these events separately.
That's also, yeah.
And it's just so fucking expensive. I could literally go to this other event and spend all the money that I want to spend and still spend less than I spent on lodging alone for WoTCon, right? It's just...
And honestly, the plane tickets is what took me out. They were really expensive.
And I get those for free because my grandma is literally a fairy godmother and will just give me points from her United so that I can fly out there. And it's even so, it's still just too freaking expensive. So Yeah, I love the con and I really hope people go, and I am sad to not go, but also like I can't justify it anymore. So this was my last year and I went knowing that, and I felt like it was nice knowing it was my last year and still being there. Like it was very melancholy, but it would have felt weird to like expect to come back and then decide not to. This time I went being like closure. This is closure.
And I think you saying it's your last year has really kind of, it's not that it's talked me into being my last year, but it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want to go back again for many of the reasons that you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a wonderful group of people doing excellent things, but it's just hard to go to Ohio. And there is a cruise that they have planned, which I have issues with on a lot of levels, so I will not be going, but that is a thing. People are going to continue to find ways to hang out. Obviously, the two cons, JordanCon and WoTCon, exist. It's, I encourage people to get together. I know there's lots of little regional gatherings that do happen. People just know that they live in a various state and they hang out, like meet up with people, have gatherings. It doesn't have to be at a convention. You can all just rent a house and eat pizza. Like that's an option too. But yeah, I do love that WoTCon exists, even if I can't go.
No, I had a couple of conversations with people too, because they were saying, we're not really sure what to do about content going forward, right? Because the show has ceased. WoTCon was very much yes, it was about the books, but it was also a show-focused medium. I think we're at this point, another inflection point in the Wheel of Time media landscape, right? Because you had the media that existed before the show was announced. The media that and then there was a flurry of activity before the show came out. And then once the show came out, you had another group, a timeline where a lot of people fell off, but a lot of people kept doing content about the show. And now we're in a post-show world.
Yeah.
And some of us have been doing content about the books the whole time, and that's fine. That's not going to change, right? The new reader book ones, but something like Takaran Riyadh, I think they have to figure out what they're doing going forward, because there's no news for them to talk about, and that was a big portion of their content. TVAD, similar, right? Like there are a lot of humor, but a lot of the humor was based around, they had a big news segment on the show, and they were talking about the show a lot, and so
right. What series? What does what series have to cover if there's no WoT series?
Right. And a lot of these have been very popular, and a lot of these people are the anchors of WoTCon. And so, I had one or two people come to me and be like, what are you going to do about content going forward? We're not really sure what to do. And then my answer is, well, for now, it doesn't affect me that much because we were never doing things about the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Our inflection point is on a completely different timeline.
Yeah, exactly.
For completely different reasons. We have an inflection point, but it's, not related to this one.
And at that point, we have options, and we've talked about those in the past that we don't need to go into right now. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what a lot of the Wheel of Time content does, and how the Wheel of Time community deals with the fact that, like, we are at a point like we were after the book's finished, right? Where you don't expect content to be coming out anytime soon. So, and you've kind of rehashed everything about the books. What do you do? Well...
yeah, there is no one answer to that.
There's no one answer to that.
Have to find their own path, and it's a scary world out there, because you can always reread to yourself. But yeah, as a community, what do you do?
Because I think people thought there would be a lot of growth with the TV show in terms of the community size, and there certainly was. Yeah,
I certainly did, and yeah, there was. Lots of people have come to the books via the show.
Right.
That's been a very real phenomena.
And someone said, there could be a really boon out there, because a lot of people who may not have wanted to read the books, now that the show is done, they're never going to get an end to their story, so they're going to go back to the books to find out what happened, right? So we could get another influx of people coming in, but you don't know. You don't know what it's going to be like going forward. Are we going to have a sort of Dune-like? There's always going to be people finding the books and reading them for the first time. Is I think the one thing that you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think they're going to be as popular as they've been in the past. I think we've hit a point where, like, some of the classics, it's going to sit on the shelf and people are going to read it.
It's becoming classic.
It's becoming classic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, people will always be making some kind of community around cosplay and fan fiction and stuff, because it's part of the fantasy canon, right? And as long as people are playing with the fantasy canon, like Wheel of Time will have relevance.
Right.
And then, maybe people in their bitterness about the show cancellation will just throw fan art at that wall, and
maybe
people will be entertained by that. You never know. There's been some pretty cool pieces of fan art that have been made, like in the Wheel of Time universe and the Hunger Games universe. Like, it does exist out there. So, like, people will continue to find creative outlets for their love of the books.
And I was never a fan of an animated version of the books until they put out Age of Legends look back episodes, and they were animated, and I thought they were so good. And then they got canceled because that's a whole IWAT thing, right?
Yeah.
Because IWAT is the company. Sony doesn't have access to the pre-Wheel of Time main timeline. They don't have access to any of the Age of Legends. That's all owned by IWAT. Ridiculous, whatever. I do think that maybe someday we could take a shot at this as an animated series. I could see it coming back with a little more faithful adaptation, because you don't have to worry so much about, like, it doesn't cost that much more to animate a big explosion than it does two people talking.
Right. Yeah, for sure. A lot less pyrotechnic safety with animated explosions.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I could see them doing something a little more true to the books in an animated format. But do I think that's going to happen anytime soon? No.
I love that Save What exists because it's giving people an outlet for their energy. But I don't think that we get nice things at this point in the age of streaming.
There was a point at the end of it where, they did a big Save What presentation. And at the end of it, Omar got up and said, do we think this campaign is going to change the minds of the big execs? No, we don't. Like, this is in some ways spitting into the wind, right? Like, we are not going to change, but it's important that we show that we care about these cancellations. It's important that we show that this is something we want back, And everybody, we can say, like, oh, it would be lovely if Apple TV picked it up. It would be lovely. But the reality is, a lot of the shows that have gotten picked up were on ABC, CBS, NBC, got canceled and picked up by a streaming service. It's very rare for a streaming service to pick up a show that was dropped by another streaming service.
Yeah. But, in great IEO fashion, we're spitting inside Blinders
Eye. Right, we are
spitting
inside Blinders Eye, for sure.
It's very much, we are collectively expressing our rage in a way that is canon consistent and feels productive. And, like, that, again, lovely community, lovely people. Like, we've been dealt a shit hand, but we are handling it in a way that is beautiful to witness. That's basically everything about our lives and what's been happening over the course of the last book. We could take some time to talk about what actually happened in the book, our first Sanderson book. And
sure. Yeah. I think this book is very Egwene and Rand focused in a way, more so than I think I remember in the past. But I think that's why The Gathering Storm and then what's the next book? Title of the next book?
Towers of Midnight
are very much happening at the same time, is something I don't think I realized. I mean, I knew that there was overlapping timelines, but how much, like, those two books are really happening at the same time. And then you go into Memory of Light, which is the last battle. But so much we didn't get to see. We saw half the story in this book.
Yeah, I agree. It was like, knowing it intellectually is one thing, but actually processing it in the podcast timeline kind of sense is like, oh yeah, we really are going to be retreading the same timeline with entirely new characters next book. That is not in a weird Winter's Heart way, but in a, like, there's literally too many characters kind of way.
And I get why he had to do that, in simply, like, if I include all the characters, I can only get halfway through their plot, and we'll have another slog-like book where we don't get any conclusions to the plots that I'm setting up. And so you really have to stick with Rand to get Rand to Veins of Gold, right? And you have to stick with him through that whole journey. And he could do Rand and Egwene, but he couldn't also do Perrin. He couldn't also do Matt. He couldn't do the rescue of Morghese. He couldn't do the unification of the White Cloaks with Perrin and him and the battle against Slayer, right? Like, all of those things that are really complicated, he really just had to split them in two. And I get why he did that now. I kind of sort of seeing how he did it in this book. I understand why, but Sanderson writes in a very different style than Jordan, right? I think that's the other thing we really came to realize when reading these books. The fine detail that Jordan puts in there that is just layer upon layer upon layer, where every word feels like he's making a 4D chess move that's doing at least 2 different things when he makes that move, if not 3 or 4 at a time. And I know people are like, but how, there's so many words and so much of it's filler. How can I think podcasting has made me realize how little filler Robert Jordan actually put in. Yes, it may look like filler because, like, my God, it's about minor characters, but so many of the lines he puts in matter in the context and tell you what that minor character thinks or is doing. And that may or may not affect the main plot, but in a lot of cases, it does.
Right.
You know,
right.
Or at least in terms of like he's justifying the votes in the hall with all of these background lines and background characters. And like, it's really, really good. Sanderson, he's just going to tell you who votes and why they vote that way.
Yeah, it was subconsciously obvious, but podcasting just makes it impossible to not see exactly where the level of detail has just like, it's at a much lower fidelity. There's the whole thing is at a much lower fidelity.
If I was reading these books, I would have to describe Jordan as digital and Sanderson as analog, right?
Other way around.
I suppose, yes.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely
the other way around. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Jordan is the full analog. Yeah.
Jordan is analog, right? Because you're right. Because there's a lot of detail in there. There's some noise, right? If you zoom in too much.
Yeah, it's because it's everything.
There's a lot of noise, but it's everything. Everything's in there.
But yeah, Sanderson is digitized. There's stuff just missing. It's just smoothed out and blocked over.
And when you get down to the resolution at which he's digitized the information, there's no more information to gain because it's just, oh, this is a 1, that's a 0. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the analogy that's more about their general writing style is Jordan's a gardener and Sanderson is an architect, right? So you walk into Jordan's garden, you're going to see, yes, structure, but the plants are growing themselves in a lot of ways. Whereas Sanderson, every line is defined, but then there's a lot less detail in the structure, right? That's a wall. It's not necessarily a wall with a lot of detail and flowers growing through it. Right.
It's not a living wall. It's a brick wall.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is like totally valid styles. Like, it's not a critique. It's just an observation. And the this transition for us has definitely been different. Seeing how it makes sense to bundle chapters together in a much different way. It felt like we obviously didn't speed run the book. It still took us the average 9 months that it always takes. But it felt more like a speed run because there were more chapters to pack into a given episode of content. Because that really worked. We did a lot of bundlings and they did not take an excessive amount of time at all.
No. And what I'll say with Sanderson is as I read his chapters, I can see an A plot, a B plot, a C plot, right? And I can see how he's interacting with those. And like, it's very obvious in A plot, B plot, C plot, you know what those 3 plots are. You don't really have to think that much harder, right? Because he writes in with Jordan, he always included a few things in there that made me go, I don't really know why that's in there. Wait, and then 20 chapters later, you're like, oh, because he was making a reference to something that was going to happen much later on, or something that happened earlier, or, those 2 characters are the same character, even though the description's slightly different, because you're seeing it from them described by 2 different POVs. It's close enough that you can make that link and then see how those characters, what's happening over here is affecting what the character's saying over there. But he's not going to tell you those are the same characters. You have to make that connection on your own, connect those 2 scenes, connect those 2 statements. And for me, as a podcaster, that's more interesting than being told, this character doesn't care because of the interaction that happened, 3 months ago. And Sanderson, in a lot of ways, is always going to be easier to read because he's always going to tell you those things up front. And so in that way, he's a lighter read. And don't get me wrong, I love his Cosmere stuff because it is just entertaining, right? It's light fluff. It's entertaining. He's got a very good world built, but it is shallow in a way that Jordan isn't. And it doesn't make it an inferior product, but it does make it harder to podcast about.
Yeah, I think that's where we do have a professional, like, actual value judgment is like, it is not quite as much fun to podcast through. It's fun to talk about the books with my friends. I do enjoy that, but there's a lot less of like academic level digging into it to be done. Which is fine. It's, whatever. Yeah,
and I enjoy the characters.
And we're in the conclusion of the books. So, like, if there was ever a time for a Sanderlanche approach, it is the end of these series.
Right. And I do have to wonder how much Would Jordan have ever finished the series? Is one of those questions that I always have to ask myself, right? Like,
Sure. So fair. So fair.
he was always a couple more books, always one more book, and even if he said one more book, it was obvious that you can't do what he needed to do in one more book, right? He would have had to write at least the three. Those three would have ballooned out because they need to a little bit. You and I both agree they could be longer. Yeah. So is there a point, would this have been a 20-book series if Jordan had been the one writing it? Would have it ever gotten finished? I don't know. I think we have a lot to thank Sanderson for in terms of finishing the books, writing a solid conclusion, making some decisions that are limiting, right? We don't get some characters at the end. We don't get some conclusions we care about, but we have an ending.
Yeah. And again, as I've said repeatedly about this book, this is Sanderson's first of the three, so it is the weakest of the three. And I think we will have a little bit more fun with his style as he gets a little more comfortable with what he's doing in book 2, and also working with a character that he has unlimited flexibility with, Perrin, will give, I hope, more fun for us to play with because we'll be more in a space that Sanderson is comfortable writing in. I hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the one thing I just don't get as much with Sanderson is the, oh my God, I can't believe I never realized that moments. Because he just tells you straight out on the page what it is. So,
right.
Yeah,
That won't change.
That won't change. But I do think there's a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with the second half of this book, right? Like,
as he got more comfortable. Yeah.
And I think, there's the Sanderlanche is a thing, right? This avalanche of stuff that happens at the end of his books, the first half. And he's gotten a little bit better about that as he's continued to write. Like, he's able to spread out his fun stuff a little bit more over the books. But like, these were some of his earlier books. And so there is just heavy Sanderlanche at the end. Same thing with Perrin at the end of the next book. Perrin and Matt, right? Like, I mean, we get the Tower of Genji and, just incredible. Yeah, like there's a lot happening at the end of the book. And Perrin, doing his super cool teleporting thing. That's at the end of this book, right?
Yeah, because then he sees veins of gold at the end.
That's right. At the end, right. So those are both like really cool moments for those characters. But again, I expect there to be some Sanderlanche in this next book. I expect the first few chapters to be a little hard to get through as he sets things up and as we do a lot of recapping and that sort of thing. And then I expect the second half of the book to be very exciting and very action-filled.
I wonder if that means that our expectations for the prologue needing 3 parts are misplaced. Probably not. It's a pretty chunky prologue. Prologues are cool.
Prologues are usually cool.
He was very Jordanian in his prologue heftiness.
Yes. I would say he put more effort into the prologues than almost any other chapter, except the ending.
Which honestly works for me as a reader. If the prologue slaps, I will slog through so much bullshit to get to the end of the book where it all comes together. If the prologue really hooks me, like, I will put up with a lot.
A good prologue asks you the question, do you want to find out the answer to this mystery?
Right.
And I think that's why I really like the prologue to The Eye of the World, even though so many people find it off-putting, is it's like, and that's why, and it got me into the books in a way I don't think a normal prologue in the Two Rivers, the Ravens prologue did, is because I wanted to know.
Nodding.
Who are the rods, 9 rods of Dominion? What's this, give me more information about all the hints and shit that you dropped in this first chapter. And then sure, drop me into the Two Rivers where everything's very common, very medieval sci-fi fantasy world that I can be very familiar with. Great, love it. But I still have all those questions, right? 3,000 years earlier, something happened and now it's affecting the world. And I think that's a really cool hook. And I think it's one Sanderson stole for his own books, right? Like if you read the prologue of the Stormlight Archive, there's this like, it's 50,000 years, right? He's going even further back. As we kind of understand the depth of what time is, 3,000 years is like nothing.
I mean, depends on what you're measuring with. But yeah, no, totally. And I think, I'm nodding. I think that the prologue, the uniqueness of the prologue, and then the drop into normalcy definitely is part of what hooked me when I first started. Because I would have read the book either way, but would I have been so intrigued to see that connective tissue for book 2, 3, 4, 5, like that prologue, you're just like, but so many gaps to fill in between the prologue and whatever's happening here.
And then when we went back to the prologue, we filled in a lot of those gaps. We're like, oh, he's using the true power. And that's something you don't really understand until book like 8, like it's incredible how much of that prologue is in the rest of the books, and that DNA, the fact that Lewis Theron says there's nobody around. And it took us much, much later to realize, oh, that's the dragon being one with the land. That's not any one power thing. That's just his ability to sense people. But it works in canon, and it's so well done. And
yeah. And I mean, and the way you get to the end and you read it and you're like, this feels like 1990 Jordan. There's this piece at the end that's just like, it feels like 1990 Jordan. This is Eye of the World Jordan.
You mean like Last Battle, Rand, and the Dark One stuff?
Like the literal end of the books, like the actual ending. Also the Rand of the Dark One stuff. But like just as you get to that final conclusion, you're like, he wrote so much of this at the beginning and has been writing towards it the whole time. The slog, the extra books, all the side quests, all the everything that he didn't anticipate. All of it was still bent towards this thing that he knew he had already written. It's just mind-blowing. And the prologue, he wrote that as part of all the same thing. You could feel it in the prologue and you can feel it at the literal very end. And like then, I mean, I heard a rumor somewhere that he wanted the prologue to be titled Epilogue originally. And like, yeah, you kind of loop back around and it feels like the same person talking to you at the beginning and the end. Like, he just, so meta. I love his brain.
So yeah, really looking forward to the next 2 books, because I think that I'm excited to finish the series. I don't know, like I'm getting that anticipation of like, oh my God, we're actually gonna finish the series as a podcast.
Yeah, I'm really excited to do Tower of Genji. I feel like Tower of Genji is
Yeah.
one of the most, like, we've been waiting for this and we knew how it was going to go, and it slaps so hard even though you know what's going to happen because the Finn are the way they are. And like, I'm looking forward to, I've really enjoyed the action sequences as we've gone through this book. I've like the big battle scenes. It's been really, really fun. So I'm really looking forward to doing Tower of Genji as a podcast conversation. Yeah, it's good times. I'm enjoying the process, even though the Sanderson of it all is a thing. It's working. It's still fun. I'm still having a good time talking with you and our audience about these books. And yeah, glad to be here.
No, and for me, because I don't feel like I know the last 3 books as well as the rest of the series, this has been a really nice way to feel like I'm getting to know those books intimately in a way that I feel like I never had before and have been struggling with. So for the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, no, I get what's going on in these books, and I get what's happening. Teaching is how you learn, right? And like, we're teaching each other about these books every day that we podcast.
Yeah, that's a really good point that, like, yeah, I have struggled so hard to internalize these last 3 books. Like, I'm not going to listen to them 12 times in isolation of the rest of the series, right? Like, that wouldn't really make sense. And it's just like, how do I learn them as well as I know the others? Podcasting through them. Podcasting through them is the cheat code to that. So, yeah, I'm really glad we're doing this.
I think that's a great way to segue into podcasting through them when we come back next week.
Yes, when we come back, we will be starting prologue part 1 of 3, probably, for Towers of Midnight. So make sure to stay tuned for that and check out my other podcasts, because I'm doing other podcasts. Used to Sew with a number 2 to make it really funny, and then autistic stuff for autistic people with no puns, no numerals, just literally the words.
Stay healthy, stay Watt. See you next time. And we'll probably do Patreons at the beginning of the next.
Yeah, Patreons next week. We'll start next week with Patreons. Okay,
totally.
Bye for real.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Please rate and review us on your podcast app, and consider supporting us on Patreon for ad-free episodes. WoT Spoilers is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com.